And what seems like a surprising story out of Southern California, there's a school district out here that is now forcing staff members to out any children that they have seen either expressing at school that they're either trans or gender non-conforming. Yeah, Southern California, where all those libs live that people always say. This is happening in Murrieta School District. This policy requires school officials to notify parents and guardians in writing within 3 days of their child's request to use a name, pronouns, or bathrooms that don't match the sex they were assigned at birth. 3 days. The approval comes despite advice from the board's legal counsel, warning the proposal may run afoul of state regulations and the California Constitution. That's the lib part. The Inland Empire, where this school is, this district is, a conservative enclave in Blue California, has been a flashpoint in attempts to impose anti-LGBTQ plus policies on local school districts, pitting religious conservatives and groups like Moms for Liberty, the group that quoted Adolf Hitler, against more liberal-minded parents and educators, as well as the states. They're gearing up for this fight. So when they had this school board meeting and they were discussing whether or not this would happen, the pros and the cons and how dangerous it could be, and either way it goes, things got a little contentious because concerned parents from both ends of this debate were outside. It spilled into an overflow crowd, and board members were discussing this whole thing. One of these board members, his name is Nicholas Pardue, he had some thoughts about how dangerous it is for children to not tell their parents about this. Let's watch that.
The stakes are really, really high when you have young kids who are flirting with these different ideations about what their gender is at a very young age, because right now the state of California, for whatever reason, is intent on allowing minors to alter who they are physically. And so the stakes are very, very high. And I think parents are very, very concerned about that. And rightly so. And I think that's why there's so much attention to this and why it's so important. And at the very least, they get a heads up. Hey, this is happening to your 4th grader, 5th grader, 6th grader. You might.
By the way, I understand the question of making sure parents know what's going on with their kids. Of course, every parent wants to know what's going on with their kids. To what degree and actually what their response may be is sometimes where it gets a little dicier. No, and of course, I think a lot of times the argument may be said, these libs want parents to not have any knowledge or rights over their children. But the thing is, every parent isn't the same. And we find that out from another board member who spoke about this as well. She was at that same board member meeting, and she gave that other side of it that I guess people just missed. Watch.
It's not like these kids are not telling their parents that they're LGBTQ. They are. If they don't, they have a very good reason. I had another male student about 5 or 6 years ago who was openly gay. His parents told him to kill himself. And he had an older brother who did kill himself for exactly the same reason. So these laws are there for a reason, because most kids can talk to their parents and do talk to their parents. There are those
moments when it happens, and we've seen a lot of these things. Rayyvana, I took a deep dive at one point on, and it's just, you find yourself on a deep dive on like Twitter or something. And it was a deep dive after one particular person came out saying they need help. It was like community, a request for some kind of survival cash because they had been kicked out of their home because they came out to their mother and their mother disowned them. And it was not a rare story. Maybe it's more extreme when, as this woman, Nancy Young, who was talking about how some parents would tell their kids to kill themselves over it. So there is some danger in going home at times. And we know that already because there's other people who talk about dangerous things at home, at-risk children, and whether or not they're in the right situation. But for some reason, when it comes to these types of things, there's no at-risk at home, there's no dangerous situations, there's no incompetent parents, but there are.
It's absolutely absurd that he would continue to say, like, it's imperative that the parents learn about this. It is not, absolutely is not. If your child felt comfortable telling you, they would tell you. Also, it raises the issue of, what if a child is just thinking, maybe I want to be referred to as these pronouns. The parents are immediately alerted, but that child wasn't sure that they wanted to tell their parents that because they weren't sure that that's necessarily what they wanted themselves. Now you have cemented this idea in the parent's mind that your child must be, trans, and if the parent is anti-trans, that will absolutely cause harm for that child. And that story that she told is horrific, but it's common. It's common. Like, there are reasons why queer people don't tell their parents that they are queer, and school is meant to be a safe space where they're able to develop these parts of themselves and to create a hostile environment where these kids, now they're being traumatized at home. They got to go to school and be traumatized further. This is child abuse, what they're trying to pass, or did pass, excuse me.
Yeah, it was a 3-2 vote, and they did pass it because they're looking to protect these children. But there's another part. So Ray, maybe people don't know anyone that's trans, or knows someone that's trans, or even gay, or lesbian, bi, any of that, or they probably do, but they haven't been told because they don't trust you. And sometimes that's the reason why they read the tea leaves of who you are and things that you've said, and maybe they don't want to reveal that to you. So when it comes to minors just doing whatever they want, this is where I'm like on the gray area. Sure, we should have some kind of oversight over minors, but there should be a protection level with folks. So if you see this kid is confused at school or trying to figure out a different way to it's their identity, then maybe you can counsel and speak with them and maybe find out if they feel safe to tell their parent at home, because there are those instances. Some of these quotes that some of these folks said, I think, highlight it to a degree, because some of these supporters of the policy, this is graphic for you guys. Some of the supporters of the policy outing kids to their parents held signs reading "Protect Family Bonds," because that's just this one linear thought. And opponents wore rainbow and pride flag attire, which must have offended these other folks to large degrees. One of the persons said, as a parent myself, I cannot but think how anti-family the current state guidance is. Her name is Jessica Tapia, and that was to the LA Times. She continued and said, parents are the greatest protectors. Not always. Why? Why is that such a blanket statement? We hear all the time how parents aren't always the best protectors, and sometimes they actually abuse their children, many times actually. And I'm sure when Republicans are running for office and they're gonna talk about how horrible certain parents are, they say stuff like that. More though, because in neighboring Temecula Valley, the school board recently threw out state-approved LGBTQ plus history lessons, describing the materials as pornographic and obscene. Two of the board members called the assassinated gay activist Harvey Milk a pedophile.
Oh my God.
So that's the thought process. So folks that think that way, you're supposed to trust your kids to them? What else do they think that makes absolutely no sense? Do they know anything about Harvey Milk? No, they just know he was gay and he got murdered for it. Therefore, he was a pedophile. Makes no sense. One more though, because this is the one thing that makes them kind of rethink their process. After a threat by the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, to fine the district $1.5 million, Temecula said, okay, sure. It was at least on those lesson plans, the history lesson plans. Because again, you have to ask yourself the question. So if kids, straight kids, bi, gay kids, trans kids, learn anything about historical figures that happen to have been gay and maybe fought for their rights, what'll happen to them? They'll become pedophiles. Suddenly, kids who are straight will suddenly become gay. Where does it make any sense?
I'll say I grew up in a Catholic household, going to church and Sunday school every Sunday. And I never once had a lesson in any of my schools that taught me about any historical gay figures. And I still turned out gay. So it has absolutely nothing to do with, you don't see a gay person on TV and you're like, wow, that's cool. I'm gay now. Same way that you don't necessarily see a straight person. You're like, wow, very compelling argument. Now I'm straight. It's absurd, but I do just want to point out the fact that the parents are trying to say that parents are the best protectors. The family is the best protector. Family, incidentally, also the people most likely to abuse a child. That's neither here nor there. These people don't see their kids as people. They see their kids as property. They see their kids as something that they own, that they possess, that needs to be perfect in their eyes, otherwise useless. Because we see LGBTQ kids are significantly more likely to be homeless than their straight counterparts. That's not because homeless people are more likely to be gay. That's because parents throw their queer kids out of the house. The people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. When they say they want to protect their kids, they mean that if my kid is, expressing any sort of, ideology I don't like, I want to know so I can put them through conversion therapy as quickly as possible. They're not protecting their kids. These people want to abuse their children. It's disgusting.
By the way, Ray, I think you just slipped through the cracks. All that Catholicism that you were raised on. I mean, somebody snuck in there somewhere. Because there's no pedophiles in Catholicism at all.
Right.
What's going on? Also, by the way, one other thing though, you mentioned how, suddenly if you see someone that's gay on TV, suddenly you'll be gay. You know, it actually does happen. Overwhelmingly, so many gay folks trying to protect themselves try to be straight or act straight or put on a front because of the fear of being outed and then maybe threatened or further killed. That happens too. So when we're talking about how people are switching and changing their identity for folks to accept them, it's actually the other way around. We've seen that all the time. Being gay is not new. It's not new. You can act like it. They even say it. It's like this new thing since these libs came out and TikTok happened. Now kids are gay. And in this next breath, we'll quote the Bible about gay people. So did they exist then or did they not? Jeez, man.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.